Good morning, Fresh CrEd listeners. As you can see from the beautiful logo behind me, we are at the IFCO booth. I'm being joined here by Mr. Pat Young, Director of Grower Sales, and Jon Brooks, Vice President of Retail Sales North America. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Ed.
Thanks for hosting us. It is day 2 of the International Fresh Produce Association Global Expo here in Anaheim. The show's about to get started, so we see around us people clamoring to get ready and host their visitors to their booths. So y'all have had obviously some time here in the last couple of days, and RPCs being not exactly a new product, it's been in North America now for over 20 years. I still think there's quite a bit of excitement here. Yesterday, there was a fun beer garden experience here at the booth. What are you hearing from customers, from prospective customers? What's interesting to them? What's important to them right now? We thought we'd take a few minutes and talk about that and get y'all's perspective.
This year's been quite a unique year. We've had a lot more customers approaching the booth directly, asking how to get involved with the IFCO program. We haven't had that in years past, so it's a very good trend for us. We've got a great group of salespeople here who are able to help answer any questions they may have, help them out in any way they need help. That's what we're here for. We're here to help.
Look, there's not a lot of things that can command the amount of people that converge on one place. The level of importance of this show, where people are coming not only from all over the country, but from all over the world on a weekend, it's a pretty big deal. So, and it's important to the business. Jon, on the retail side, anything interesting that you've heard, not only at the show, but coming into the show, maybe some things that folks have been asking you about? I know that on the retail side, you've had some interesting conversations, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, great to be here. And thanks for doing the show with us here. Like Pat said, we did have a big crowd. Might have had something to do with our beer garden theme, as you can see, as a nod to our German heritage. So we've had a lot of fun at the show. In terms of trends and what people are talking about, obviously EPR has been a big discussion so far this week. So a lot of pressure on packaging itself. So the main focus there has really been on that primary packaging, but we've had some great discussions with retailers and with growers as that packaging is getting reduced more and more. And then there's so much pressure getting put on those producers to eliminate that packaging. What can we do to help support that? So RPCs obviously have a big influence there on the exterior packaging. And if we can provide a level of protection for those products to get from A to B, it's great for them, allows them to comply with those requirements and really push on forward with that. So a lot of discussion around that, in terms of trending topics and things that are on growers and retailers' minds as the pressure continues to mount for them to perform.
Another thing to worry about, right?
Yeah.
So what they don't have to worry about is RPCs. From a supply chain perspective, service, customer experience, anything exciting you can share with our listeners?
Yeah, so an example of one thing that we've done this year is we've opened a storage facility in the Pacific Northwest to help service our apple growers. We came up with a solution by pre-staging RPCs in the Pacific Northwest to have availability to them. We've heard nothing but positive things about having that storage available. It's been about a year now that's been in place.
Good feedback there. For those that don't know, Jon, I guess the dynamic of RPCs, the concept of rebalancing the pool, that could be pretty interesting to folks that don't realize that RPCs aren't just something you can call up Uber Eats and grab.
Yeah, it's, the pooling model is certainly unique. So we have to manage what we call supply and demand. So we have surplus and deficit markets. So what that means, obviously there's a lot of production. We're out here in California. A lot of growers are based out here. So that creates a lot of demand for us on the west part of the country. And supply for a cooler is really from consumption of end consumers. So if you think about where the population resides, it's really on the coast. So that creates consumption and then supply for us. When that supply is created, we need to get those crates back to the west. The Pacific Northwest is isolated from a geography standpoint. So even if there's weather issues, passes close in the winter, sometimes it can be challenging to get crates where they need to be. It's something we need to stay on top of. We need to stay ahead of those demand trends. The seasonal trends, the shifts from south to north as the seasons progress and really stay ahead of that. So a lot of fun as a pooler, and it creates challenges for us, but we got a lot of great people at IFCO that are up for that challenge, and it's been a lot of fun to work on.
Speaking of customers, Pat, you were talking earlier when we're in hair and makeup about the non-conventional programs that perhaps y'all might be working on. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we do have some pretty exciting opportunities right now that we're working on with field to processors. It's a program that's been around for a long time. We have done some of it in the past. But we are finding a lot of opportunity in that because our product does such a good job of keeping the product fresh, keeping it safe, transporting it from the field to the processor.
So that's field to processor. On the retail side, Jon, I mean, what would you say are some of the most important things that retailers give? What's the most important thing to them?
I think freshness, is probably number one in a retailer's eyes. I mean, in this environment, there's a lot of pressure being put on the retailers and the growers alike. Margin gets compressed. So you want the freshest product. You keep the customers coming back. And when you walk into a grocery store, you're typically walking right into the fresh section. So it's their first impression of a retailer. And we want to help them with that. And if you have the freshest product, our RPCs will help extend shelf life, create freshness for the product, and most importantly, reduce the shrink and damage that there's a lot of handling that happens in the supply chain. So if you can reduce that damage and keep the product safe going to the shelf and the end consumer, it'll sit on your shelf at home and on your counter and stay a lot longer. So that's really the name of the game for the retailers, is really improving and extending that shelf life presence that it has.
Anything personally from a consumer standpoint? Here at the show, you've gotten to walk around, seen a lot of product. Obviously, working in the industry, you get to see a lot of product, both at the grower shipper level, at marketer level, and on the retail level. I mean, I know over the years, I've been to a lot of these shows back to the PMA days, pre-merger. And it seems like I wind up taste testing items here that I carry back into my own life, and always great to see new products. Unfortunately, for me, I rarely get to see the whole show. I don't know when the last time is that I could say that I walked every aisle. Some people get it done, but I'm not sure you can stop too much. So anything you've seen, either from like a value added standpoint, a new conventional item.
The one thing that has impressed me is the amount of growers from other countries that are here. South America predominantly being here, growers from Peru, they've got their own booth. Growers from Mexico have their own booth. So it's nice to see that the South American market is starting to invest in these shows and presenting their commodities here.
Jon, anything in particular?
Yeah, the value added stuff, I think, has been something that's been new for us. New packaging being created, and then you're just trying to grab that end customer again. I mean, it's one thing to provide items in bulk. It's another to kind of package in unique ways, something that consumers have had for a long time. So, as those packages change, it really affects how it goes into the box, right? Be it corrugated boxes or RPCs. So that's something that we are certainly paying attention to. And as we're walking around the show, just trying to understand, how do the grower shippers want to ship those products? How do the retailers want to merchandise them? And how do we support that? So it's been a lot of the conversation so far this week.
Anything from the technology side that you'd share with the listeners as far as something that IFCO's working on or excited about or breaking through?
Yeah, I think back to the freshness comment, right? I mean, everything comes back to freshness. The cold chain visibility, I think, is one of the most important things that we're working on. From an RFID perspective, we're also working on some unique technologies to help track from a case level. But supply chain visibility is going to win, right? I mean, if you can track those cases and you understand from field to shelf, where are your assets and where is that product? Is it going out of, cold chain or not, right? And if they can have that visibility and end up mapping that back and eliminating those opportunities, it puts a fresher product on the shelf and keeps consumers coming back. So
Yeah, for sure. And from a supply side, again, using the digital tags that we do have on our RPCs, the RFID, we are able to know how many times those RPCs are turning, when they leave our service center, coming back to our service center.
So it sounds like the possibilities are endless when it comes to the digital components, tracking, et cetera. So probably just scratching the surface at this point, right? I'm sure y'all are looking forward to more of that to come in the future. And as customers get interested, I'm sure they hear about digital and digital solutions, not knowing exactly what that means or what that could mean for them in the future. But just like everything we've seen over time, things improve and people are forced by their need and demand of their business to evolve. So we're excited to see what that brings to IFCO and in the future.
And if I could add on that, I think as technology improves and the costs come down on the technology side, I mean, I think that's where you're going to see reusables really shine, right? So we're able to put a large investment into our pool that allows you to get that tracking that you wouldn't otherwise see on a single use asset, right? I mean, it's just not cost effective to put something like that on an asset that's going to end up being put into a landfill or destroyed. I think we're finally getting to that point where those lines are crossing and the investment we're making is really starting to shine through. So great opportunity for reusables and certainly happy to talk to the retailers about it. It's definitely on the top of their list.
All right. So In full transparency, here at the Fresh CrEd, we talked about the good stuff, but what are some of the challenges that you're hearing from customers?
I'm talking to the retailers this week, and it's no surprise to anyone, I don't think, but labor costs, right? I mean, labor costs are up. Costs in general are up on the supply chain. We talked about that a little bit before. So there's a lot of pressure being put on retailers and growers alike. So, one of the largest opportunities I think out there is how do you manage that in-store labor, which is a conversation we end up having a lot. When you look at an RPC, it's really important to talk about that end-to-end value. So there's cost to rent it, and then there's value created down that supply chain. So if you're only looking at the cost of a rental versus the cost of a box, it's a bit of a myopic view on how to look at your supply chain. So as we're talking to supply chain leaders, to produce leaders, and as they elevate and look across their organization, they're really starting to say, how do I pull these costs out? And for us, a big opportunity is really on that in-store labor. Any retailer would tell you they'd much rather have their associates talking to customers, driving sales, talking to them about what's trending, what's new,
Yes.
Versus being in the back room, baling corrugated boxes or handling any kind of single-use asset in the back of the store. That's a big opportunity, whether you look at that as a labor savings or you look at that as an opportunity to drive revenue. Those are the conversations we've been having with retailers, but that pressure on labor is real for all of us. We've spent a lot of money investing in our supply chain on automation and really trying to manage that ourselves. But for the retailers, that's very real. And if we can keep those associates on the floor talking to customers, I think that's a win for our retailers.
Yeah. And it's very similar for the grower side. Labor availability is a major topic for them. So they are investing heavily in automation as well. So we've had a lot of calls lately about RPC formers that build the RPCs on the front end of the packing line, as well as we're not involved necessarily directly with this, but palletizers at the end of the line. So the front to end automation with the growers.
Automation in general, right? Even at the retail level, RPCs, I would say from a design perspective, are likely being more considered than any other packaging from a utilization standpoint in automation. I'm sure, Jon, as retailers build new distribution centers or refurb distribution centers, moving more towards automation, obviously lends to utilization of RPCs. You've seen some of that. I'm sure you've also been, I know, to Europe and seen some of what happens there. It seems like retailers in the US are always very interested in what's going on in Europe, even though geographically it's a lot smaller area. What can you share either from what you saw in Europe on your trip from a automation standpoint or the interest from retailers on automation and how RPCs serve that supply chain so well?
Yeah, I think, what we're seeing overseas is really that commitment to full automation and fresh. And there's certainly automation in North America, typically starts in center store and works its way out. What we see with the European retailers is they've already made it to the kind of outer edge of the store from an automation perspective. They're inbounding a fresh produce. It goes right into the automated equipment and comes out on the other end with a pallet ready to go down to the store. And we're starting to see that in North America too. So we've talked to retailers recently that have said, I'm not going to open another distribution center that's not fully automated. In years past, it's been thought there's so many unique combinations of container types that fresh plays in, right? And every product is different, needs to be transported different. But as you look at reusables and the consistency that they provide, it does open up that opportunity for automation and to induct boxes that are very consistent in shape and size. And with the labor challenges that all these retailers are facing, I think it really opens up that opportunity to automate, which is going to happen, right? I mean, we're seeing it. We're certainly trending that way. And I think for a long time, it's been a lot of talk about what will happen in the future, but that future is here and it's happening now. And those retailers are automating these distribution centers today. So happy to be a part of that.
Super exciting stuff. Definitely supply chain improvements that we could all benefit from a cost perspective, from availability perspective, as a consumer, et cetera. So we're kind of getting the high sign here. The show's about to start. The team here is having a hard time holding back all the fans waiting for autographs from y'all. So we'll probably wrap it up with, have a great show. Have a great rest of the day today. It was great seeing you both.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks for having us.